Good morning, class. I believe you are all doing well. You are welcome to today's lecture. Today we want to talk about demand and its attributes. Demand and its attributes. So this is going to be our outline. We will talk about demand elasticities and demand estimates. Then we'll look at managerial uses of elasticity concept. Then we'll look at demand forecasting. So to kickstart, demand elasticities and demand estimates. What is the meaning of elasticity? Have you heard the word elasticity before? Actually, elasticity is an index of reaction. What happens when something also happens? Or how does one variable respond to a change in another variable? Basically, that is what elasticity is. So demand elasticity is the relative responsiveness of quantity demanded of a commodity due to changes in price of the commodity, income of the consumers of the commodity, and prices of related commodities. So how quantity demanded will respond when there is a change in price, or there is a change in income of the consumer, or there is a change in price of related commodities. Now there are two caveats of elasticity I would like us to take note of. The first is that elasticity is unitless or dimensionless. It's a dimensionless concept. That means it doesn't have any unit. As in price has a unit of currency, Ghana cedis, and tomato has a unit of let me even use chocolate. We can have 3 boxes of chocolate and others, but for elasticity it is unitless. So when you calculate elasticity and you get 2, the answer is 2. It doesn't have any units. And the second is that the coefficient of elasticity is ordered according to absolute value as opposed to algebraic value. So when you calculate elasticity and you get a negative value, we just consider the absolute value. So if you get negative 2, we consider it to be 2. And so if you calculate elasticity and you get negative 2, it is and you calculate another elasticity and you get negative 1, then negative 2 is considered greater than the negative 1 because we consider the absolute value, not so the sign by it is not really considered. Everything is considered as positive, right? But the signs are also for a purpose, but for comparison of which one is greater than the other, we consider the absolute value, right? So price elasticity of demand. Price elasticity of demand is the relative responsiveness of quantity demanded of a commodity to changes in the price of the commodity alone. Remember when we talked about elasticity, we talked about it could be a change in the price of the commodity, or a change in the income of consumer, or a change in the price of related commodities. But when we qualify the type of elasticity, we call it price elasticity of demand, then it is a responsiveness of quantity demanded of a commodity to changes in the price of the commodity. So under price elasticity of demand, we have different types we want to look at. But the first is point elasticity of demand. It measures the elasticity of demand at a point on the demand curve, at a particular point on the demand curve. So this is the formula. Point elasticity of demand is percentage change in the quantity demanded divided by percentage change in the price. It can also be defined as this sign, this triangle sign means change. So change in quantity demanded divided by the quantity demanded, all divided by change in the price divided by the price. And the change in the quantity demanded is Q2, which is the current price minus the previous price, which is the current quantity minus the previous quantity. So Q2 minus Q1. And a change in price, we have P2 minus P1. That's the current price minus the previous price. Right, let's move on. Classifications or description of price elasticity of demand. Anytime you calculate the price elasticity of demand and you get a number greater than 1, it means that it is fairly elastic, or it has a fairly elastic demand. If you get less than 1, it means it has fairly inelastic demand. If you get equal to 1, it is unitary elastic demand. If it is equal to 0, it is perfectly inelastic. and if it is less than infinity, it is perfectly elastic demand. So now let's take some trial questions. The first question: the initial price of orange was 16 Ghana cedis and quantity demanded was 50. And as the price dropped to 15 Ghana cedis, quantity demanded increased to 55 oranges. Find the point elasticity of demand. And secondly, interpret the coefficient of price elasticity. Right, so we've got to know the formula of point elasticity of demand. Let's move on to the solution. The first is to take all the values that are mentioned. The current quantity demanded is 55, which is Q2 we have here, and the previous quantity demanded is 50, which is Q1. Then the current price is, which is P2, is 15. The previous price P1 is 16. Right, so we just insert our formula. Price elasticity of demand is change in quantity demanded divided by the previous quantity, all divided by change in price divided by the previous price or the original price. We insert our figures here. So Q2 minus Q1 is 55 minus 50 divided by 50, which is the original quantity or the previous quantity, all divided by 15, which is P2 minus P1, 15 minus 16, all divided by 16. Then you calculate. You can use your calculator or you can do it manually. The answer is negative 1.6. So the point elasticity coefficient of negative 1.6, because it's greater than 1, we say that price elasticity of demand is fairly elastic. Right, so that is it. Now let me explain the reason why we have this negative sign. For the law of demand, it states that as price increases, quantity demanded decreases. So there's a negative relationship between price and quantity demanded. So anytime we are calculating elasticity of demand and we get a negative, it means that we are talking about demand, because for demand there is a negative relationship between price and quantity demanded. Right, so the next thing to look at is arc elasticity of demand. Arc elasticity of demand, it deals with the average of the proportionate change in quantity demanded and price of the commodity. So this is the formula. It is quite similar to the point elasticity of demand, only that for this one, instead of using just Q1, we combine Q1 and Q2 and P1 and P2 at the denominator side. So that's very simple. It's almost like the first one we tackled. Right, so you may want to try your hand on this question. The initial price of orange was 16 Ghana cedis and quantity demanded was 50. And as the price dropped to 15 Ghana cedis, quantity demanded increased to 55 oranges. Find the arc elasticity of demand and interpret the coefficient of arc elasticity. Right, so if you tried the question and you got this solution, then if you got this answer, then that was right. Now the interpretation, you realize that this is also greater than 1.5. So the arc elasticity coefficient of 1.5 shows that price is fairly elastic. Great. So let's look at the shape of the curves of various elasticities. When you have a curve like this, where the demand curve is gently sloping, it is fairly elastic. It has a fairly elastic demand. And if you have a curve like this where it slopes steeply, the demand curve slopes steeply, that means that demand is fairly inelastic. Then if you have one like this, that is more or less like a rectangular parabola or a diagonal. Assuming if you draw a rectangle, this one cuts it into two, it means that the demand curve is unitary elastic. And the last but one, if you have a demand curve that is just vertical. If it is vertical, it means it is perfectly inelastic. And the last one, if you have a demand curve that is horizontal, it is perfectly elastic. Perfectly elastic. We want to pause here. We'll continue in the next slide. Thank you.